I may have been the teacher, but I also learned a lot while teaching English here in Germany. Hey everyone, I'm Donna and you're watching Wanted Adventure Living Abroad. If you've clicked on this video looking for information about teaching English in Germany, this is not that video, but I have made a video on that topic already and I will link to it down below. So what is this video about? Well, when I first moved to Munich, I taught English to adult students here in Germany for about 3 years. And during that time, I learned many different lessons and things, and so today I will share a few of those things that I learned. Why people learn English. It was just amazing. I learned that people learn English for a million different reasons, and I think that was actually one of the most fascinating parts about teaching English here. Meeting so many different people and learning about what inspired them to learn English. I taught one person who refereed shooting competitions and needed English for that. I taught another person who often traveled internationally because they were an organ courier. And some of my students were working in customer service and they would actually be using their English most often to communicate with other non-native English speakers from around the world. More than just the language. I also learned very quickly that teaching English is a heck of a lot more than just teaching the language. It's often also about teaching the culture behind the language, because sometimes, as I learned, there are words that can't really be translated into German because the full and complete concept just doesn't exist in Germany. Cul-de-sac, for example. The dictionary translates cul-de-sac to Sackgasse, but they're not really the same thing, and that's because houses and housing arrangements are themselves very different in Germany and the US. So you really have to look at the culture there. To really explain cul-de-sac, I would have to talk about that in America, for example, you often have housing developments and subdivisions with a name and a sign at the entrance to that development. And sometimes, but not always, there are rules for everyone living in that development. Like maybe you can only paint your house one of 3 pre-approved colors, or you must mow your lawn a certain number of times per month or else you'll be fined, or something like that. Some Germans need a little time. I taught many different classes and many different students during my time as an English teacher in Germany, and one very important thing that it taught me about the culture in Germany is that sometimes at first some Germans can be a bit of a tough nut to crack, but when they do warm up to you and if they do let you in, they really let you in. So it just seemed to me like some of my students needed a little bit more time to open up to someone that they didn't know than what I was used to in the US. And at first, I did take it personally. I just couldn't help but take it personally. I would start a lesson in a new class, or sometimes I would fill in for another teacher if they were sick. And for like the first minutes of the class, some or sometimes all of the students would be a little standoffish, kind of hesitant, like, who is this person here and what does she want from me? They weren't all necessarily really convinced about me from the first moment. But then, oftentimes, by the middle of the lesson, they had relaxed and warmed up to me a little bit. But sometimes not. Sometimes it took a few classes, but usually at least by the end of the course, they'd kind of come around and were then often really warm and just really kind and open. I had one course that at first I swore up and down that the students hated me, or at least they didn't really trust me. But by the end of the course, they were just all so kind and so open. And on the last day, they brought me flowers and little gifts and a card. And it was just unbelievable how warm and welcoming they then were. Government-sponsored education. One of the first classes that I taught here in Germany was to Germans who were actually sent to the class by the government. They were there because they had been collecting unemployment money for, I believe, over 2 years at that point, obviously without successfully landing a job during that time. So they were sent to learn English in order to make themselves a better job candidate. And then those classes were paid for by the government. So my question for you is, have you taken English or any other language classes outside of school? What's been your experience with that? And teachers out there, what has teaching taught you? Please let me know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. And also a really big thank you so much to our patrons on Patreon who help make these videos possible. Thank you so much for your support. If you would like to check out our Patreon page, you can find a link to that down in the description box below. Until next time, auf Wiedersehen. Hey, just one quick thing. Mr. German Man and I are taking a little break, and there will be no Wednesday video this week. We're taking a little vacation. All the Sunday videos will still be the same, Sunday at 9 a.m. And next week, the Wednesday video will be back at 3 p.m. So just no Wednesday video this coming August 16th. Okay, thanks. Bye. That's it. Any other language classes outside of school? What? Yeah. And for like the first but they're not really the same thing. And that's because houses and housing themselves arrangements